Hi, I'm Jim Boardman from Palo Alto Networks Academy, and this is the fifth video in a series of videos dedicated to students competing at CCDC competitions. The purpose of this series of videos is to show you how to deploy and configure our VM100 firewall appliance running on an ESXi host to protect your virtual servers that are running on the same ESXi host. We call this protecting your east-west traffic. In this video, we'll go over the licenses that we were installed as when we entered the auth code, as you recall from video number 4. We'll then look at the dynamic updates. These are updates for our signatures that are authorized by our licenses that we installed. And I'll briefly go over a little bit of Wildfire. We'll talk a little bit about Wildfire, and then we will do snapshots and backups. But first, let's go and review a little bit of what we did during the last video session. Okay, this is how we have our firewall, our VM100 appliance set up on our ESXi hypervisor, ESXi host. As you recall, we imported the VM100, we changed the default password. We then did some network setups. So as you recall, by default, when we imported the OVA in, it only came with 2 interfaces, Network Adapter 1, Network Adapter 2. Network Adapter 1 is our management interface. This is very important. It is, as you recall, is in order to get our licensing done, we have to make sure this is connected, the management interface is connected to an interface that has access to the internet, which we did in our last video. And we also changed the IP address of this so that it's consistent with something that is running on our network. The reason why we had to do that is because initially we're going to be accessing that management interface from a computer device that's in our competition network, in our competition area. Later on, we're going to shut off management access to this device, so we will only be managing it from the trusted interface in our trusted zone. So after we did the, then in our last video, we accessed the Web UI management interface. So let's go and take a look at that, and we can just do a brief review on what we did last time. All right, so device tab, that's the tab that we're going to be doing a lot of our initial setups. So as you recall, we came in, we looked at the management, we changed the time zone right here. Very important to make sure we got good times for our logs. Here we looked at the management interface. As you recall, when you hit the settings wheel, that allows us to configure it. Initially, by default, this is where we're managing our firewall. We're using the Web UI, so that's the HTTPS. If you wanted to get command line access, you would use SSH. Now, as we discussed in an earlier video, it's not good practice to be managing your appliance from a interface that's connected to the internet. So we're going to change this later on so that we're going to shut these off, we're going to uncheck these, and then you will be managing it only from the inside of your network, from your trusted zone. So in order to allow our management interface in order to retrieve our licenses, we had to come over to our services. We had to configure our DNS server, which we did. You can also configure NTP. You got to be a little bit careful with NTP from a security aspect, but certainly it's always good practice to have good timing, to have accurate time on your devices. So in operations, we took a quick look at this. This is where I can reboot my device and shut down my device. This is also where I can export configurations and import configurations. We talked about the idea of commit. Okay, once I make a change, then I have to commit that change. Then finally, we looked at we licensed our product. We did that over here in the licensing area. And this is where we entered, as you recall, we entered the auth code. This auth code will be provided to you. It's possible that your VM100 appliance could already be licensed. In that case, you wouldn't need to do this. Once you've entered your auth code and it's licensed, the device will reboot. These are the licenses you should have on your VM100 firewall. The ones that you're going to be of interest to you are the threat prevention, threat prevention. That's where you're going to get your antivirus, your vulnerability signatures, your antivirus signatures, and your anti-spyware signatures. And you're also going to be your application signatures. So we have to go over to dynamic updates to get all these signatures that are authorized by our licenses. So let's go over there. So as you can see here, I'm going to check to see what is available. And so as you can see here, I have my applications and threats. So we would click to download these. So after I downloaded my application and threats, I'll need to install that. So I click the install button. Oops, I have to commit first. So let's go ahead and commit. So the configuration has been committed. Now let's close that. And now we can install. This will install our application signatures as well as our antivirus signatures and some of our malware signatures. Okay, after we've installed our applications and threats, we'll need to commit the changes. Okay, and then we should continue to check to see if we have any other updates we could do. This is all these, the applications and threats, they're all part of Content ID. We'll be using all these signatures when we configure our security policies and when we configure Content ID using security profiles. We're going to go over that in videos coming up. All right, so now let's download the antivirus. Antivirus is updated daily. Applications and the signatures are updated daily. Applications and threats, they're updated weekly. So and then Wildfire, which is down here, is updated every 15 minutes in the 7.0 and every 5 minutes in 7.1. I'll talk about Wildfire here in a second. But first, let's go ahead and download the latest antivirus signatures. At any other time throughout the competition. So we can install this. Let's go ahead and install it now that we've downloaded the signatures. Okay, so we've installed our antivirus signatures. So now let's take a look at Wildfire. And let's download. Well, now Wildfire, the purpose of Wildfire is to give you as near to zero-day attack protection as possible. So in today's world, it's not, you have to not only be able to protect against the known attacks, you have to be able to provide protection against the unknown attacks, and that's what Wildfire does. So if a file hasn't been categorized or something hasn't been categorized, then that file will be sent to our Wildfire cloud, which is through your management interface. So that's another reason why your management interface needs to be connected to the internet, is that if it sees anything suspicious, that's how it's uploaded to our cloud servers. And our cloud servers will make a determination as whether that file is or PE program executable, whether it is a malware, which would be bad, grayware, which is not bad but not good, just a kind of a nuisance, or benign. Once that categorization is made, okay, if it's malware, then our Threat Intelligence Cloud, our Wildfire Threat Intelligence Cloud, will create a signature, and that signature will then be downloaded to all the devices that have wildfire. That'll be done every 15 minutes if you're on 7.0, which is the operating system I'm using here. If you're using 7.1, then it's going to be updated every 5 minutes. So these signatures then can be used in your security profiles to block malware as appropriate. Okay, so now that I have all my signatures updated, and I also would need to install this. I can go ahead and set up scheduling after I've installed this. Now, you'd only really need to do this for a wildfire, because wildfire, like I said, is updated every 15 minutes or every 5 minutes. So you could do that. You can come in here, click a schedule, and you can set it up for every 15 minutes, every hour, whenever, however frequently you want. Okay, so for the others, it's not going to be as critical, because the antivirus is, well, antivirus, you'd probably want to do this once a day too. And application threats, you probably you wouldn't want to schedule this at all, because this is done on a weekly basis and your computation is going to be over within the week. So now, after I've fully licensed my appliance, the next thing that I want to do is I want to take a snapshot. And I'll tell a little bit of story about that. When I was a captain, when I was in the Air Force, I was chief of maintenance over at Mildenhall, which is in the UK. And I had a chief that worked for me, and we used to go out golfing. And this chief was like a pro golfer, and I was kind of a hack. So when I asked him for advice, I said, "Chief, what do I need to do to become a better golfer?" And he looked at me and he said, "Sir, there's 3 rules of golf. And the 3 rules of golf are keep your head down, keep your head down, keep your head down." Now, he's a crusty old chief, so there may have been a few expletives, which I won't put in there in my recounting of the story. But what I did is I took his advice and I kind of made it into an IT phrase. And when I was teaching at Alfred State, I'd always tell my students, and when you're dealing with virtual servers, virtual machines, whether on a workstation or whether in the ESXi platform, I changed it so there were 6 rules. Okay, and the first 3 rules are snapshot, 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 and then the second 3 rules are backup, backup, backup. So let's go ahead and do that here to take a snapshot. Here's where I would do that. I would say take a snapshot. I'm not going to do that because it's going to take some time. Once I've taken that snapshot, then I want to back up that virtual machine. Now the key, what makes taking a snapshot really good and something that you really need to do with your VM100 appliance is I can revert to that snapshot if my firewall gets misconfigured or if it gets corrupted, and I don't lose the license. The license stays with it. So when I go back to the snapshot, the license will stay with it. So that's the reason why a snapshot is very, very important. So after I've taken that snapshot, I would go over to storage and I would browse my data store, right? And here's my VM100. I would want to make sure that I download all these files to a safe place, so that in the event that my ESXi host becomes corrupted or inaccessible, at least I got the VM100 appliance saved somewhere and I would be able to reconstitute it. Later on, I will show you how to export your configuration. So that's all for this video. This is video number 5. It's a little bit longer. Sorry about that. We're moving on into video 6.